Hello, Kerry Secker here. I am a caring sleep supporter and the founder of Kerry Cares Parenting, which is home to my unique Carry Out Sleep approach. I am on a serious sleep mission to get you a settled night's sleep without sleep training, controlled crying, leaving your little one to cry, or doing anything that doesn't feel instinctively right for you and your family. Now, chances are, if you are listening to this video, that your little one their sleep at night is a little bit of a shiz show and they might be sleep struggling at night. Now it's really important that this might be the first time you're listening to me, and my whole approach is that little one's sleep doesn't need fixing. They are not broken, and there is always a reason behind their wake-ups, and I promise you 100% that even if your little one is refusing all their naps, bedtime is this massive bedtime battle, you've got the bed dread big time, they are waking frequently during the night, they've been up for 50 times in an hour, whatever is going down at night in your bed, or what isn't going down at night in your bed sleep wise, there is always a reason why your little one is sleep struggling, and that reason is never ever you. I know it feels like you are doing all the wrong things, that you're getting it all wrong, that there is something wrong, it must be something that you are doing, or that your small is missing the sleep setting. I promise you it is none of those things. There is always a biological reason or a sleep science reason behind a little one's sleep struggle, or I'm much prefer to call an unsettled night's sleep, and there's always a caring way forward that doesn't involve controlled crying it out, controlled comforting, however you want to dress gentle up to sound a little bit more gentle. Without knowing your little one's sleep story, it is really impossible for me to say, yep, this is definitely why your little one is waking up. People do it to me all the time. Friends, people I meet out and about, they find out what I do, they hold up their baby and they'll be like, why is my baby not sleeping? Why can't they go to the baby to sleep? And in all honesty, I don't have my sleep spy goggles where I can just look at a baby and go, oh yeah, that's why you're waking up. It's in order to look at what's going on at night, or to really pinpoint the reason behind why they're waking up, I need to know their full sleep, I call it their sleep history, sleep story, and all their sleep symptoms. It's like going to a doctor and saying I don't feel very well but not giving any symptoms. You're unlikely to get a diagnosis from that. However, from experience, there are a set number of most likely reasons why your little one is waking up. I'm going to talk you through those today, and then I'm going to go through the most common reason that it's likely that your little one is sleep is unsettled at night, and most importantly what you can do to bring that settled night's sleep. Fingers crossed. So usually when parents, or when you are looking when sleep is disturbed at night and very unsettled, and there might be a bit of a sleep struggle going on, we tend to hone in on one thing and go, oh, it's because I didn't do a bath, or I didn't send up a quick prayer to the sleep gods, or I went in and I made eye contact with them, this is why they're not sleeping. It's very unlikely to be any of those things, I promise, and it's more likely to be a combination of things. It's usually a combination of something from their naps, something from their bedtime routine, something from what's actually happening at night, and maybe going through how they go to sleep at night. That brings the sleep sustainable. It's very rare just one thing that's behind the sleep struggle, and for some little ones you need all your little sleep steps or your sleep pieces in place, that's a mouthful, before that sleep becomes settled and more sustainable for you. So the reasons why, there are 4 likely reasons why your little one is struggling to sleep at night. Number 1 is reflux. Now, I'm not saying that if your little one is sleep struggling or is really unsettled at night that it's definitely reflux, but I always like to check first whether there's any history of reflux, whether you think there's any reflux, and if they're on any medication. If you feel that your little one does have reflux, your parenting instincts are never wrong. They're there for a reason. They keep you and your little one safe, and they are always absolutely spot on. So if your little one is really unsettled and you have an inclination that your little one might have reflux, it is always worth going down that route and ruling that out first before going any further, because reflux really can impact sleep. Baby with silent reflux won't want to lay down, won't put their head back, and because they're in so much pain as soon as they lay down, and with all the acid in their throat, it will definitely have a negative impact on sleep. Then the second reason under that is overtiredness, and this is what I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to explain in a second why this happens. But overtiredness, it seems so ridiculously sleep simple, and so illogical, but overtiredness is the number one reason behind a sleep struggle or an unsettled night's sleep. Then after that, it may be how we support them at night. Again, at night, your instincts are to listen out for your baby and respond to them when they wake up and they need you. And my approach is, if there is a need at night and they're asking for support, we always go to them every single time. It doesn't make a rod for your own back. It doesn't make bad habits. It's not going to encourage them to wake up more. In fact, it does the opposite. It makes them safe and settled so that sleep can come. But sometimes we go in, and again, I don't believe parents make mistakes, or I don't believe you are making mistakes, sabotaging sleep or doing the wrong thing. It's just sometimes there can be a bit of confusion when to go in. But if your little one is crying and they need you every single time, we will go in. But that definitely needs a big part of my approach. Then after how we support them at night, it may be their bedtime boundaries. Now, you probably know bedtime boundaries as a sleep crutch, a rod for your own back, a bad habit, a negative sleep association. I call how your little one goes down to bed, so how you physically get them to sleep, your bedtime boundary. And your bedtime boundary, I like to keep things really simple here, because sleep can be really simple. But your bedtime boundary will either work or it won't work. And sometimes how they go down to sleep blocks the back end of the night. But again, that's quite rare that happens. And we always look at the reflux, the overtiredness, how we support them at night before we get to that point, because changing bedtime boundaries is a big job. 100% can be done with care, with love, meeting their needs, but it does take time and consistency. And rocking, cuddling, squatting, singing your little one to bed, only an issue if it's an issue for you. It really is no one else's bed business what is going down again in your bed at bedtime, overnight. People get so affronted by how your little one is sleeping. It's like they're joining you from a sleepover. But unless they are sleeping there with you and joining, and it's their business, it really is nobody else's bed business what's going on. So if you're happy to carry on rocking, singing, cuddling, you carry on. It is your bed business. However, sometimes how they go to bed does impact the back end of the sleep, but very rare. And I want to know that that's what's happening. Then after this, you'll get things like teething, a wonder weeks, a regression, illness, dummy in this one as well. So these things are things that are quite likely, they may bring sleep out of the sleep saddle, but on their own they're unlikely to be causing a massive sleep struggle. And it's very rare that the dummy, I will come and do another video on this, but look out for it. But it's very rare the dummy gets blamed a lot on sleep struggle. It's the dummy, you've got to get rid of the dummy, they shouldn't have comfort at night. It is very rare it's a dummy. I don't think this year, I'm trying to remember, it's getting harder as I get older, but this year I haven't ever suggested to a parent that I've been working with to lose the dummy, because it's very rare that it is. It's usually, it gets mixed up with everything else above that, with the reasons why your little one wakes up. And again, these things may have an impact, but again, unlikely to be the main reason. And obviously sleep, baby sleep, infant sleep, toddler sleep, it's not a linear process. We're always changing and developing, and people get ill, little ones get ill, you get ill, and sleep is a little bit of a roller coaster. But with consistency and keeping your, I call them my sleep steps, in place, they can help keep that night settled even when they are going through teething or the wonder weeks, or they're unwell. Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you about the number one reason why your little one is waking up. And the number one reason, the number one likely reason, I say likely because all babies are completely different, and without those sleep spy goggles, I don't know what's going on. I always go in blind when I'm working with a family anyway. But the most likely reason behind a sleep struggle, and it's the one that I always address first, is overtiredness. It sounds so blooming ridiculous and so simple, because logically we think that right, if we're really tired, we will just go to sleep, and we will once we're asleep, we'll stay asleep. But actually that isn't the case, and this is because even though if you're watching this you want more sleep, I'm really busy working with families and sharing my sleep shares because we want more sleep. But actually when we're sleeping, it's not the sleep that makes us the sleep that's vulnerable, but when we are in a deep sleep, we have completely shut down to what's going on in our bodies and our environment. And that's not a particularly safe thing to do when we're sleeping. So we have to have sleep safety systems in place to keep us safe when we're sleeping. And being overtired is one of these safety systems, because nobody can just go 12 hours, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours at night without checking in on ourselves. We have to keep checking in on ourselves. And if we were overtired, we would just flump into a massive, great big deep sleep, and then we would run the risk of not checking in and making sure we're safe. So when we're overtired, what happens is our body floods with cortisol, aka baby Red Bull, and it does exactly as it says on that tin, and it keeps your little one, your small, in a heightened state of alert, and they will battle going to sleep, and it will keep them in a lighter sleep stage so that they can keep checking in on themselves, that they're going to be in tune with what's going on around them even though they're tired. And that is the most common reason. So when your little one is overtired, they produce this cortisol, aka the baby Red Bull, and it keeps your baby in this, or your toddler or your little one, whatever age your little one is. Even for us, when we're overtired, we produce the cortisol, and it keeps us in a heightened state of alert. And what that means is that it has an impact on sleep. So I have come up with I call them my cortisol clues, and these are little clues that can be an indication that your little one is a little bit overtired. And I will give them to you now, so I'll go through them. So the common classic cortisol clue is that your little one wakes up early in the morning. Now, being a parent, 6 a.m. it is a bit of a ball buster, but actually if they've slept well till 6, we're doing okay. However, anything with a 5, 4, 3, 2 in it, there is lots of things you can do, and it's very likely to be the cortisol. So what happens is the sleep hormone gradually decreases overnight, and then what happens is the cortisol rises, and then that means that your little one can't get back to sleep when they wake up in the early hours of the morning. So that's a classic cortisol clue. The other classic cortisol clues are they may be during the day, they might fight and resist their naps, or what can happen is that they take really short naps. So they fight, and they can fight harder as the day goes on, and then once they're down they take only really short naps. And by short naps, I call a sleep snack around anything 10, 15, 20 minutes. For some little ones, 30 minutes is maybe that they are capable of doing. Then after naps, they might do this is a really classic cortisol clue, is they might what I call bed begging. So they're begging for bed, and this is when they get into the bath, they're crying, get out of the bath, they're crying, get into pyjamas, they're crying getting into their room. And basically crying is always communication, and what they're trying to communicate to you here is, come on, get a shift on, sleep shift on, I'm exhausted, get me down. Bed begging, the most common cortisol clue there is. Then once they have, or it can go the other way actually with bed begging, it's either bed begging or they do what I call the cot crash. And what happens with the cot crash is by the time they get to bedtime, they're so exhausted that as soon as they have their bottle or their breast or their last feed at night, what happens is the sucking is meant to, when we suck, babies have a very strong suck to sleep reflex, and that's what helps get them to sleep in the early days when they're not producing their melatonin, the sleep hormone. So as soon as your baby starts sucking at night, if they're really overtired, they'll just crash out, and then that means that they will might not be able to drink all their bottle, or they're not going to take a full feed from the breast. That's especially with breastfed babies, because breastfed babies actually have to do the work. They have to be at the breast, and they have to pump it to keep the milk going. And if they're too tired, what can happen sometimes is they drink a bit, the sucking sends them to sleep, they come off the breast, and then they realise, oh gosh, I haven't quite finished yet. And then they come back on, feed, and that can be going on for a while. So it's usually one extreme or the other. Then after that, bedtime battles are another real classic cortisol clue. So the average time it takes a little one to fall asleep is 30 minutes, believe it or not. And that may seem like a very long time, but none of us, unless you are absolutely, completely sleep deprived, which some of you may be, none of us just get into bed and fall asleep straight away. It takes a while to get into bed, calm down, get calm, put ourselves to sleep, and the average time it takes for a little one to do that is 30 minutes. And some may need a lot of support whilst they're putting themselves to sleep. But if they are producing cortisol, they've got the old Red Bull going through their system, it can take them up to 6 times longer to fall asleep. So when you think the average is 30 minutes, you could have some families I have worked with some families that have got a 2 to 3 hour bedtime battle on their hands at night, and it is really, really tough. That's really tough. And then you get the bed dread, which is where you dread putting them to bed. So then what happens is that you put it off because you know what's coming, and then obviously your little one begs for bed more, gets more overtired, and then it's even harder to kind of move forward and get them down for sleep. But yeah, bedtime battle, bed begging, real classic cortisol clues that your little one is overtired. Then once they go down for sleep and you've had that bedtime battle, usually, now again, I can't stress this enough, I don't like to use the word normal, and it's very rare you'll catch me using that word, because when we hear normal, again, we think that if our little one doesn't fall into that range or isn't doing that, then the opposite of normal is abnormal and there's something wrong. But that's hardly ever the case. There's a great, we're all very, very different. But the usual pattern is, the natural pattern is after they've gone down to bed, that first stretch till midnight is usually a solid chunk of sleep. If your little one wakes up at this time, you're still not doing anything wrong. Again, it comes back to there's always a reason behind that sleep struggle, science or biology. But in that first part of the night, also feeding in that first part of the night, you usually get frequent wake-ups in the first part of the night if they've done the bottle or the breast crash at bedtime. But usually speaking, generally speaking, let's use the word generally speaking, bedtime till midnight is usually a consistent block of sleep. And this is because they've got plenty of melatonin, the sleep hormone, in their system that keeps them asleep. And if they do wake up, it's usually a quick pat, quick feed, quick rock, bit of reassurance, and they're straight back down. You don't have to work too hard to get your baby back to sleep. However, from midnight, something magical about midnight, and the melatonin sleep hormone starts to decrease out of the body. And what happens then is that if your little one is overtired, you can get them waking more frequently post midnight and be awake for longer chunks of time. And this, again, waking past midnight, longer chunks of time past midnight, is a classic cortisol clue that your little one is overtired. And then that brings us back to the early wake up. So at the back end of the night, there's no sleep hormone in their system. If they've got the cortisol, they've gone to bed a little bit overtired, that can wake them up and they're unable to get back into their sleep at that end of the day. Now, babies, so they are all my cortisol clues. I hope they're really useful. If I'm at a talk or I'm talking to parents, they're usually kind of nodding away. Gosh, you're just describing my child here. This is exactly what's going on. Now, being a little one, they are busy. We lead very busy little lives. They do get tired. So the odd cortisol clue every day, or every couple of days, is absolutely fine, especially if their sleep is settled. The best way to tell whether your baby is getting enough is look at them. They are the manual. They don't come earthside clutching that manual, because there isn't a one-size-fits-all manual or solution when it comes to anything to do with babies, but definitely not sleep. But they will tell us exactly, they're the manual, and if we are communicating with them and listening to what they're telling us, they will tell us what they need. They are very good like that. So if sleep is settled and they're sleeping well at night and you see the odd cortisol clue, it's very, very likely that it's just been a really busy day and they've got a little bit overtired. We all get really overtired, especially by Friday, and all is well. However, obviously on the other end of that scale, if we are seeing all those cortisol clues regularly and the sleep is struggling, it's highly likely that your little one is a little bit overtired, have got the cortisol clues, and that's the reason behind the sleep struggle. So to sum it all up, controlling the cortisol, I call it controlling the cortisol, is the first step to a settled night's sleep. It's everything. If you can control that cortisol during the day, and I'm going to come on to how to do that in a second very quickly, but if you can control the cortisol during the day, that means they have naps, they're well rested during the day, bedtime, there's no bed dread, they can go down smoothly, they're not crashing out on the breast or bottle, they can fall asleep quite smoothly with or without help, whatever your bedtime boundary looks like. And then that means that they go down without that bedtime battle, and that plays out into the night sleep, and then they sleep well overnight, which then feeds into naps. Everything is linked with little one's sleep, the nights, the naps, and also things like toileting, behaviour, and eating. Everything with a little one is linked, and I try to look at the whole treat very holistically. So controlling the cortisol, how do we control the cortisol? So the way to control the cortisol is through naps, and naps are your first and most important sleep step, because they do the job of controlling the cortisol. And if you can control that cortisol, you are halfway there to a settled night's sleep. And for some families, that is all you have to do for that sleep to settle. So what I'm going to do is naps vary greatly from baby to baby, and it's very difficult all babies are very different. But on my approach, what we do is we stick to nap gap timing. So nap gap is the time from when they woke up to the time that they next need a nap. And we try to stick to those. And if your little one is fighting their naps or finding it very difficult to get down, it's usually that the timings, again, you're not doing anything wrong, you're not doing the wrong things, this stuff isn't out there, but just bringing everything slightly earlier and just nailing the nap timings is usually all it takes to settle them down for naps and to get them down. So the nap gaps are as follows by age. I'm going to go through them by age and stage. It is going to be a little bit waffly because if anybody's got any suggestions, I haven't yet been able to manage to do this in a very smooth process. So 0 to 3 months, this is when your baby is in the 4th trimester. Now if you haven't heard of the 4th trimester, and this is the first time you've heard of it, and you've got a baby in the first 3 months, I highly recommend looking up the 4th trimester. I've done a radio show on it. You can find that at UK Health Radio. I'm always writing about it, I'm always bleating on about it. It's really, really important. But in the first 3 months of your little one's life, they are naturally nocturnal. And this is because when you were pregnant, during the day you would walk around and your movement would soothe them off to sleep. This is why newborn babies love movement, because during the day that's how they got to sleep. And then at night, when it was calm and quiet, they would come out and they would take nourishment from your placenta and come out and play. And this is why your newborn baby is born nocturnal. And trying to get a newborn baby into a nap routine can be very, very stressful, because if you say I said, right, your baby's got to sleep at 9 a.m. For 2 hours, if they don't do that, immediately you're going to think that you're doing something wrong, there's something wrong with your little one, and that's not the case at all. It's just when your newborn baby is nocturnal, it's very, very difficult to get them into a nap routine. So I call, for the first 3 months where naps are concerned, I call it the 3-month free-for-all. And there's no rods or bad habits to be made at any age, but definitely not in the first 3 months. And all I would suggest doing is take a note of the times that they are sleepy during the day, and very, very gently try to help them learn the difference between night and day. So during the day, we keep it light, keep your curtains open, keep it sociable, keep chatting to them, keep it noisy. We don't need to tiptoe around a newborn baby. And then at night, again, needs at night are always met on my approach. But when we're meeting them, calm, quiet voice, hushed tones, keep it dark on the low key so that they get the idea that the difference between night and day. And by the time your little one is between 2 to 3 months, they've shifted over, and it's much easier to start off the nap routine. Okay, so nap gaps for 3 to 4 months. So the first nap of the day sets them on the way, and this is because if we time this nap gap just right, what happens is it gets them down, controls the cortisol, and it makes all other naps that follow go much more smoothly. If your little one fights their naps as the day goes on, it can be a sign that that first nap is just a little bit too late for them. And that first nap is an incredibly short nap gap. For between 3 and 4 months, that first nap gap is around 45 minutes to an hour after they wake up. So it's literally wake up, say good morning, have a feed, nappy change, bit of a wake time, and then it is straight back to sleep. And then after that, I wouldn't push a nap gap of any more than an hour and a half during the day. So every hour and a half, they'll need to be settled back to sleep. And in the first, before you get to 6 months, that can be quite an intense period for naps, because it's just naps on constant rinse and repeat, but it is completely natural because they're not producing melatonin yet. Okay, so that's 3 to 4 months. Then 4 to 5 months, the first nap gap is around an hour to an hour and 15 in the morning, and then after that a nap gap of around 2 hours during the day. And then after that you've got 5 to 6 months, and that will be again roughly around an hour and a half to 2 hours for their first nap gap, and then again it would be around 2.5 hours throughout the day that they will need to be settled to sleep. Then, so up to 6 months, those are the nap gaps up to 6 months. And as I said before, up until 6 months, before 6 months, your little one isn't producing any melatonin. And it is and they can't manage long nap gaps or wake windows, and it is a very intense period of napping. It's like up, nap, rinse, sleep, poop, repeat. But by 6 months, what happens is their circadian rhythm gets fully established, or their sleep system, and naps at around 6 months tend to consolidate and lengthen naturally by themselves without us having to do anything. And if they haven't, then it's much easier to try and do something to support them along the way. So from 6 months, the first nap gap is 2 hours, and then after that it will be 3 hours, and then 4 hours to bedtime. And then that nap routine, the 2, 3, 4, then stays on until they drop that first nap. And signs that they are dropping that first nap are they just refuse to go down for their nap, or they go down, it takes them ages to nod off, and then they take 5 or 10 minutes, or they just take a really, really short nap, like 10, 15 minutes at that first one, and then they can manage to make it till midday before needing a nap. And then after that, the nap gets dropped, then it becomes one nap, and when we have one nap, ideally, once they've gone down to one nap, it's in the middle of the day with equal nap gaps either side. And when they drop that nap, that can be anywhere from 18 months to 5 years old. Every child, every baby is so different. And again, I always come back to, what is your little one telling us? Are they ready? When they're ready to drop a nap or nap transition, they will tell us that they're ready by being able to make that first nap gap longer, and then you can shunt everything else up. I hope that all makes sense. It's what I think I'll do is I will put a post below this video so that the nap gaps are there and you can see them at a glance, because it is a bit convoluted. But just to go through them very quickly again, to sleep summarise, 0 to 3, quite difficult to get a nap routine going because they're naturally nocturnal, so just note down the times that they are quite sleepy, and as they get to 3 months, you can start off the 3-month nap routine, nap gaps. 3 to 4 months, first nap gap is between 45 minutes to an hour for their first nap, then after that they will need a nap every hour and a half. 4 to 5 months, the first nap gap will be about an hour and 15 minutes, and then a nap gap again every 1.5 to 2 hours during the day. 5 to 6 months, that first nap gap is around an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes, and then a maximum nap gap during the day of around an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then from 6 months, so you can do the 2, 3, 4 routine, so 2 hours to the first nap, then 3 hours, and then 4 hours until bedtime. And then that lasts them until they drop that first nap, signs that they're ready, that they can just make it until lunchtime, short nap, refuse to go to sleep, then they have one nap in the middle of the day, ideally with equal naps either side, and then they drop that one nap when they're ready, anywhere between 18 months to 5 years. And again, signs that they are ready to drop that nap is that bedtime gets later and later and later, or they just start being able to make it until bedtime, or they'll go down and have a really short nap. And again, once they've gone down to one nap, bedtime may need to be a little bit earlier. So they're your nap gaps. Now the other thing, just before I go, that I want to talk about is bedtime. Now again, it seems very logical that they've had so many naps during the day today, they don't need another nap, they don't need an early bedtime, we can keep them up. It's really bedtime. Your naps do the job of preventing the cortisol for bedtime, if that makes sense, and then bedtime the actual time, the best time of bed for them, does the job of controlling the cortisol for the night. So even if they've had loads of naps during the day, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can push bedtime. And I would always recommend from under 6 months that you stay, you have them settled to sleep by the maximum nap gap, or the maximum nap gap that your little one can manage. And once you're in tune with them, you will learn, you know your baby best, you are their expert, you will know exactly, you can read exactly what they're doing. I'm not there in the moment is what I'm trying to say, but really fudging it. And then for 6 months plus, I'm a big fan of the early bedtime, but babies are all very different, but generally speaking, their melatonin, their sleep hormone, is at its peak at around 7 p.m. and for 6 months until around 18 months, I would say ideally would have them settled to sleep by 7 p.m. when the melatonin is at its peak. And then as from there, from 18 months plus, you can push it a little bit till 7:30. But again, if there's any bedtime battling going on, or their bedtime resistance, or any cortisol clues, try bringing your bedtime slightly earlier. And sometimes it is the tiniest of tweaks that can make such a difference to your sleep story. So sometimes it's just 5 or 10 minutes that makes all the difference at bedtime to your little one going down smoothly, nicely, without the bed dread, without the bedtime battle, and having a smoother night's sleep overnight. Lovely. Well, I really hope you found this video helpful, and you can find out more about my approach about me and my approach over at www.kerrycaresparenting.com. I also have a Facebook group called the Carry It Out Community, and it's such a lovely sleep space. If you're not already in there, you are more than welcome, and tons of sleep talk and sleep solidarity await you there. And I love it. I check in every day in there, and the support that other parents are showing each other and answering each other's questions, it's lovely. And you can find that, the link to that is at my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/careitout, and it's in the pin post. You can just click on the group, ask to join, and I will approve you. Lovely to talk to you. I really hope to see you over on my Facebook group very soon, and sending tons of sleep solidarity and best bed wishes. Bye.